What's the best case, worst case, okay, of what could happen here?
The best case scenario is that the Americans and Iranians reach a compromise where they agree to share the Strait of Hormuz. So there'll be tolls collected because the Iranians want reparations for all the damage that the Israelis and the Americans caused this past month. But they agree to share it with the Americans, and they agree to collect the tolls in US dollars. And all sanctions are lifted, and peace comes to the Middle East. And there is a possibility. I'm not saying this is impossible, but it is a very low probability, and this would be the best case scenario.
Best case scenario. Give me the worst case scenario.
The worst case scenario is that Trump follows through and bombs all of Iran's power plants. And the reason why this is the worst case scenario is that there are certain individuals who are now trying to protect the power plants with their bodies. So the Iranian government has called on for the young people of Iran to make the ultimate sacrifice and make a human chain around all power plants in Iran. And so the Americans go in, they blow up all the power plants and kill a lot of young people. Well, in this case, the Iranians are obligated now to destroy the entire economy of the GCC. This would include all oil fields. This would include all the desalination plants. This would include all data centers. And this would be the absolute worst case scenario.
What's your likelihood of that happening? Give a percentage. Like if you're going to do a Cal sheet type of, I think that's a 1%, 2%. If you were a betting man, what would you say it is?
So I would say best case scenario is 1%. I would say worst case scenario is 10%. And I would say a limited ground incursion would be about 40%.
Okay, so you have a higher likelihood of us hitting the power plants than the best case scenario happening. 10 times more likely the worst case than the best case. How does Trump, because your prediction was Trump wins, Trump goes to war with Iran, and America loses. Define losing, because some people could say Afghanistan was a loss, right? The way Biden left, you know, we left, $83 billion it cost us. We left $7 billion of equipment there, whatever the numbers are. Define loss. What does loss mean to you?
Right. So loss means that America is forced to retreat from the Middle East. And this will enable Iran to control the GCC countries. Because remember, the GCC is very important for the petrodollar system, where the GCC sells its oil in US dollars and then recycles this back into the American economy, primarily by investing in AI. So a lot of these AI data centers are financed by investment from these GCC sovereign wealth funds. And so if America were to retreat from the Middle East, they would lose the petrodollar, the American economy would collapse, and you would have a civil war emerge in America.
A civil war emerge in America. Okay, interesting. Do you think the president has a team of rivals right now that are trying to prevent that from happening? Because I think that you and I both know the president is a what do you think asking everybody. What are your thoughts? What do you think? What do you think? Including his enemies. I mean, this guy called Elizabeth Warren and said, hey, what do you think about us doing this to the credit card companies? And Elizabeth Warren's like, he just called. I was confused when he called me. You know, President Trump will bring Mamdani in and say, hey, don't worry about it. Do you think he is fully aware of the risks of what could happen if he goes aggressive here? Do you think he's fully aware of it?
I think, unfortunately, he's surrounding himself with psychophants, right? So President Trump said about a couple weeks ago, when people asked him, why are we in this war? Because he has never really articulated a reason or an objective for this war. And he basically said that, well, Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff, Peter Hegseth, Marco Rubio talked me into it. So what he's done is he's basically elevated the hawkish elements of his administration and basically ostracized or put on the sidelines the more cautionary, conservative elements of his administration, who include J.D. Vance and Tulsi Gabbard. So I believe that J.D. Vance has been very vocal in trying to negotiate a peace treaty as soon as possible, and now he's in Hungary, far away from the action. And there's rumors of Tulsi Gabbard being removed from the administration at some point.
Yeah, Tulsi, I think there was another name as well. Tulsi and Howard Lutnick were the two names that were brought up yesterday that may be next on the chopping blocks that he may move on from. Going back to it, Iran, IRGC, your opinion on them, you hear the phrase, they're the biggest producers of terrorism, or there's many different phrases people use against them. How dangerous do you think Iran is, led by the current regime, to the world, especially to the Gulf states, the 6 GCC countries you're talking about? But how dangerous do you think they are to society if this regime stays in power?
So I think there are many factions within Iran that are very concerned that if this war continues, the Revolutionary Guards will be able to control all of Iranian society. So right now they control about 50% of the economy. But if this war continues, they might control 100% of the Iranian economy. And this would be disastrous for other factions within Iran who want a progressive secular society. And remember that these people have a grudge against America. So in 1979, students in Tehran overran the American embassy and took people hostage. People don't know this, but those students are now running the Revolutionary Guard Corps. Also, their leader, Qasem Soleimani, was killed by the Americans in January 2020. And they wanted revenge against Americans for the longest time. And now it's a perfect opportunity. So there's a lot of blood, bad blood between the Americans and the Revolutionary Guard Corps. And the Revolutionary Guard Corps see this as an opportunity to destroy the Americans once and for all, even at the cost of their own society. So there's a real threat here.
That's interesting. So if have you ever watched The Godfather, the Godfather series? I'm assuming you have. So if you know this, and you know that if Iran hated us a year ago, if Iran hated us 8 years ago when we killed Qasem Soleimani, how much more do they hate us today after taking out the 50+ leaders that we have in the last 4 or 5 weeks? Whatever how many days are we at? 43, 44 days? I don't know the exact days. How much more do they hate us? So don't you think from a purely a power play standpoint, if you went this far and you killed everyone and you back off, whether you support this happening or not, we're already in it. Of course, we could have had the debate 45 days ago, don't do it. But now we're in it. If you're this far and you get out, didn't you just make Iran even angrier to want to retaliate to U.S. and the rest of the world?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very hard to see an off-ramp here because the Iranians will not give up. Even if the Americans were to leave, the Iranians would assert control over the GCC, right? And that's why Saudi Arabia and the UAE are pressuring Trump to finish this war, right? So it's easy to start a war, but
what do you think is the right move?
The war,
what do you think is the right move? What do you? You're an advisor. You've said a lot of crazy things, which is very interesting, and I like to hear what you're saying because when everybody is saying the same exact thing, you're not learning leaks. You need to hear and what other people are saying. What do you think is the right move to do here right now for both U.S. and the Gulf states?
If I were the Gulf states and if I were the United States, my advice would be to organize a conference for 4 countries: the United States, Russia, Iran, and China. Do not include the Europeans, do not include the GCC, do not include Israel. Just these 4 countries: United States, Russia, China, and Iran. And come to a collective agreement where these 4 nations agree on a new trade relationship based on the US dollar. I think all 4 nations are interested in maintaining the US dollar as a global reserve currency because no one else wants that global reserve currency status.
Why would you do that if those 3 all hate you, and if you're in a meeting with them, China's not necessarily an ally, Russia's not necessarily an ally, Iran's not necessarily an ally? Why would I hold this meeting knowing it's 3 against 1? Trump would never host a meeting like that knowing the leverage isn't on him, right? And so he's got the support of Gulf states. They're on his side. He knows he doesn't with China. He knows he doesn't with Russia. He knows he definitely doesn't with Iran. Why host a meeting like that? I don't see the logic behind that. Feel free to push back. I don't see the logic behind that.